When feeding your subconscious mind the story that you have something that you presently don't in this physical reality, there is an element of consistency in the work and persistence. But is there a way to gauge if you have persisted enough in that new story to impress the mind and have it play out? And if so, how do you gauge it? Well, that's what I want to clear up for you today. I know there are many people that do great work and just don't know where they're at or how long to do it for. So if you feel like you need some help with that, this is the video for you. But before we do jump into that, if you could drop me a like and a comment on this video, just to let me know you've enjoyed it and it pushes it out on the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and be sure to click that bell icon. And if you need any one-to-one help where I can look into your situation and give you direct, tailored advice, self-study worksheets, exclusive content, free products, discounts on everything, me manifesting for you, or the full Manifest Your Specific Person course, it would do you a huge benefit to head down to the description once you've watched this video and check out my website where all of those things are available for you at such an affordable price. But thank you so much for your time into this video. Now, before I get on to how to gauge it, let me first explain why persistence is necessary. Your subconscious mind is a store of stories and uses those stories to continue to pump out the reality that you experience. So when it comes to trying to feed it a new story, sometimes you will have to be persistent in feeding that new story. Typically speaking, if there's less opposing thoughts to it, there's less work that needs to be done, as opposed to loads of opposing thoughts requiring a bit more work. For example, if you were thinking about your mum calling you and you have a fairly good relationship with your mum, chances are it may only take a handful of thoughts or affirmations or something for her to call you, because you're not sitting there thinking, oh my God, my mum's never going to call me. She hates me. She's never going to do this. She's never going to do that. And therefore, there's very few thoughts needed to show your mind that she's doing that. On the contrary, if you've had a breakup with someone and all you're thinking is they never want to hear from me, they wish they never met me, they this, they that, and it's all awful things, you may find that you have to do quite a lot of work to out-counter it, or a fair amount of work to minimize that negative so you don't have to do so much positive to impress the mind. So this is why persistence is necessary, because let's say your situation is the latter and you decide to do a day's worth of affirming for 20 minutes, but you've then thought like crap for an hour, that 20 minutes probably isn't going to have much of an effect on the stories you have going on up here. So we must persist. The day after, 20 minutes, and we work on reducing that negative. The day after, another 20 minutes, we work on reducing that negative. And we keep going until we impress the subconscious mind. That's why persistence in and of itself is necessary, because while for some things doing it a handful of times and then never again can work, those things are typically the things you don't care that much about and have no opposing story to, which is great if you want to experience them. But let's be real, most of us watching these videos and learning about the law have desires that to us at that present moment in time aren't going to be as simple as set it and forget it, because of the opposing stories of bad financial upbringing or bad relationship experience, or heard something terrible from your manager and now you're panicking about losing your job, for example. So that's why persistence is a necessary factor. How do we gauge it? How do we know that we are A, persisting correctly, and B, whether or not we've quote unquote done enough and how long to even persist for? Let me start by answering that final part just because I think it's the quickest one. I recommend you persist until you get your desire. Now, the reason why I think that is because manifestation is all about emulating how you would be if you already had that desire prior to you receiving it. If you had that desire, you would think about it as though it is yours. Let's take a relationship, for example. If you were in a relationship with someone, you would still think about them fairly regularly during the day. You'd text them, they'd come to mind, you may live with them, you may be married to them. Whatever the circumstances are, you'd have them. And they would be on your mind a lot. So when it comes to that process, it's from the perspective of them being yours. You're in the end result, so you naturally think from that end result. So this is why when manifesting, we should continue to persist until we get the desire as a minimum, and then let our natural consciousness of having them, because it's in our physical reality, take over. While, like I said, you can definitely do the set it and forget it things, that's typically for things that you don't have much opposing story to. With your person, using person as an example, if you would think about them when you had them in reality, or in physical reality, I should probably specify, then it doesn't really make much sense to do some work and then do nothing and then get them and then continue again thinking about them. On top of that, you also don't want to potentially miss out on the fact that you've done some work, but then during the time that you've stopped, you've forgotten it, so to speak, you then start thinking negatively and outwork that story. So if it'd be natural for you to think about them consistently as though they were yours when you have them in physical reality, then it should be just as natural to think about them as though you have them, manifestation-wise, leading up to it. And this way, you ensure that you impress your subconscious mind, you ensure that you're impressing it as effectively as possible, and you're being as natural toward having your desire as possible. How do we gauge then? Because that explains how long to persist for, but how do we gauge whether or not we are persisting effectively and whether we should shift things up? Well, first and foremost, take some personal inventory. Be aware of yourself. Are you genuinely doing manifestation work more dominantly throughout the day than you would say you are dwelling in negatives? If the answer is yes, great, you are persisting correctly. It's literally as simple as that. If you stop at the end of the day and say, in terms of my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions, was I more aligned to having my person or my desire than I was aligned toward not having them? If the answer is yes, then you are persisting correctly, and that is all you need to do. If you wish to up the work, that's well within your choice to do so, but there's no necessity to do so. If the answer is no, you were in the negative state more, then you know what needs to be tweaked. You needed to handle those spirals quicker. You need to up the manifestation work if you wish to, or at the very, very minimum, reduce the amount of negative that you have going on until you can answer, yes, I was genuinely in the state today more dominantly of having them than I was of not having them. And that way you can then say again that you are persisting correctly. But as far as persisting correctly and being able to take your foot off the accelerator a little bit, when you can do this, in my view, is when it is more natural for you in your mind to think of them as they are yours, as opposed to not yours. Again, using the person as an example, replace that with whatever your desire is. Because if you can naturally, and I mean just unconsciously, I don't mean, oh, I'm thinking this, let me think this, or let me affirm this desire. I mean just naturally, on a consistent basis, you think of the desire as though it is yours. That is a very surefire way to know that your subconscious mind has been impressed, or at the very least is being impressed, and you can kind of take your foot off the accelerator a little bit. Cut it down from 10 minutes of affirmations in the morning and night to 7 minutes, for example. But it all takes an awareness. You persist until you get the desire, because that way you ensure you're impressing the mind, you're being very consistent with how you would be if you actually had the desire, and it kind of eliminates any potential cock-ups. If you are able to consistently say that you're in the state of having your desire more dominantly during the day than you're in the state of not having it, then you know you're persisting correctly. And if it feels like it is just yours and you naturally think that way, that is good evidence that you have done enough persisting to impress, and now it is more a case of keeping yourself topped up to ensure that you just don't accidentally go the other way. Because, using an analogy, you could plant 1 million seeds in your garden right now, but if you tomorrow go out there and start digging them up, they're still not going to grow. Which is why I think you should persist until it hardens into fact, a Neville Goddard quote there, because that way you can ensure that they are being watered, correct sunlight, correct conditions to grow, as opposed to just setting the seed and it being like, you know what, have fun. If you live, you live. If you don't, whatever. While that approach can work, it typically works for things you have less opposing thoughts to or less care about, which is why things like hearing a song on the radio or an old friend reaching out or a compliment or a free coffee or something seem to happen with a handful of thoughts, but with months of working on your person, maybe not so much, for example. Now, there is a very, very big difference, and I want to specify this, and I'm pretty sure Friday's video is going to be about this. There's a very big difference between detachment and forgetting it, i.e. the setting and forgetting process to the detachment. Because I've seen a lot of confusion and I've seen a lot of video titles. Admittedly, I've never watched any of these videos. I haven't watched a video for a very, very long time that someone else has posted that I haven't been linked to. But there's a lot of videos saying things like detachment is destroying your manifestation, or you don't need to detach, and things like that. And going off of the baseline of what their title says and my understanding of the process, I want to believe they're referring to the set it and forget it kind of detachment, as opposed to detaching in the correct way. So I want to clear up on Friday what that actually means. So if you're concerned about detachment or a little bit confused as to how to persist and detach at the same time, check out Friday's video. But as far as persistence goes, and as far as how long you should persist in your affirmations, or any technique for that matter, I titled it Affirmations because people affirm most, but of course, they all do the same thing. A tiny recap as far as how long you should persist for. My honest opinion, persist until it hardens into fact. To know that you are persisting correctly, stop and ask yourself, have I been in the state more dominantly today of having my desire than of not having? If the answer is yes, you are persisting correctly. If the answer is no, then you need to tweak. Because just because you do something every single day and you persist in showing up, if you're not doing it correctly, you're being consistent, but you're not persisting in that end result. So make those tweaks. And if you feel like you've done enough and you want to take your foot off the accelerator, but you want to be sure that you're at the right stage, ask yourself, if I think about it naturally, what comes up? Obviously, not every single time it's going to be the end result, but if you can sit there and say, when you naturally think of your desire, it seems to guide more toward having than not having, that's a good enough evidence to say that you could probably rein it in a little bit if you wanted to, but still definitely keep yourself topped up on that end result on a consistent basis, because you want to ensure that you are still nurturing that seed. I really hope this video has helped. In fact, I trust that it has helped. If you need any of my one-to-one help though, looking into your situation, what you're doing, limiting beliefs and so on, and want some tailored advice, and only if you are serious about getting help, because I don't want you to half-ass it. I'm here to help you. You better be ready to help yourself. Down below in the comment section and the description is the link to my website where I offer one-to-one services. If you want some self-study stuff, but with my knowledge imparted onto it, on that same website is the link to my worksheets. If you want exclusive content, such as the full Manifest Your X-Back exhaustive guide, Katie talking about her experience while being manifested, presentation videos, and so on, as well as free products, discounts on products, me affirming for you for 3 days, which actually, if you were to buy them separately, costs more than the membership that gets you those 3 days for free costs. Better value for you than it is for me in that instance. And calls with me, check out the memberships tab. And if you want my full 33 lesson long of the Manifest Your Specific Person back course, also on that website is the courses tab where you can find that too. But thank you so much for being here with me today. If you could drop me a like on it, just because it really helps the algorithm, and comment something, anything at all, tell me a joke, tell me a funny story, I don't care, just talk to me. I like the comments, I like responding. Comment down below. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and be sure to click that bell icon. But thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.